A mental illness is a disease like many other diseases. 2 out of every 5 people may experience a mental disorder in their lifetime. For 1 out of 17, the illness will be serious and disabling. Today, however, modern treatment, medicine, and therapy can produce excellent outcomes, especially with early diagnosis and intervention. So why do so many people let fear, shame, and stigma prevent them from seeking the care that will help them most? Queens Public Television will explore these issues and more in this series, Understanding Mental Illness. In the past, people feared that a diagnosis of mental illness meant a life sentence of institutionalization. But today, locally based outpatient clinics allow many people with mental illnesses to remain at home in their communities while receiving treatment. With the valuable support of families and friends, they can move toward recovery. One such facility is Pride of Judea in Douglaston, Queens. Here, people who suffer from sudden emotional shock or trauma can find support. Just recently married, Jackie and Victor celebrated his new job with a trip to a nearby resort. Tragically, it would be the start of a much longer journey for Jackie.
My husband got a good job with the laborers union, and we both had the time off to go away for a few days, which we had wanted to do. So we were supposed to go to Mohegan Sun, but we went down to Atlantic City. And we were staying in a big hotel down there, and we were winning some money. And I went up to the room, and he stayed downstairs to play another game of blackjack. And he never came back to the room, so I had reported him missing, called the police, called the hospitals. And 5 hours later, the detectives came to my room to tell me that he was murdered while being robbed of his personal belongings and the money that we had won.
The onset of mental illness can develop later in life. Joel had retired as a teacher and practicing lawyer when his symptoms started. There seemed to be no cause.
I'm not quite sure what it's related to. Sometimes anxiety is related to traumatic events in your life, but I can recall no traumatic events occurring in my life. Both my family and I both thought that the symptoms were unusual, and I didn't certainly object to hospitalization. I certainly consented to the hospitalization, and so be it. That was the way it wound up. I was hospitalized, and the doctors tried various antidepressant medications, and they decided that the antidepressant medications were ineffective. I do not recall what the medications were, but they decided that in addition to some of the medications, I would require electroshock treatments, which are still administered to this day, in approximately 30-day intervals. You're under anesthesiology, so I really don't know what occurs, and they attach electrodes, and I assume the electrodes are for the purpose of stimulating various brain cells and making them more responsive, and that's about all I could say about the ECT. It's not designed to improve the treatment, was made clear to me, but it's designed to maintain my position. In other words, so that it would not become any worse. And I don't feel it has become any worse. So in that sense, the ECT has been successful. So there's been no traumatic experience that I could attribute this increased anxiety to, but I must be honest with you and tell you that I do experience increased anxiety and have experienced it over the last 6 to 8 months.
Joel is a man of conviction, a man of strong values, a very bright man, but Joel struggles, and he's the first to admit it, that his depression and his anxiety often get the best of him.
Depression can develop from a disturbing situational change, the loss of loved ones, or even prolonged isolation. For Virginia, family life was all important, until it was gone and she was alone.
We moved to Queens, where I met the love of my life. And I announced to my mother that I was going to be married. He was Italian. Oh, she was so upset. She used to say, please, please don't marry him. You'll be wearing a babushka and scrubbing the floor on your hands and knees. But I reassured her, and I went on to get married, had four wonderful children, really good kids. And they went on with their families. They had their families and they went their different ways. And I was so needed while they were young and while they were having babies. And all of a sudden, I was there by myself and I wasn't needed anymore, I thought. So I did what I shouldn't have done. I royally crashed. It felt like I was useless. Which way did I turn? Do I start to go outside and start to do things for myself? I had no desire to whatsoever. I was really a housewife and a mother. I never worked outside the house, and I was with those kids all the time. I did a very foolish thing one day. I thought, what the heck am I going to do? And I sat there and the TV was on and you could hear traffic outside and everything, and I wasn't taking part of any of it. And I looked over at the night table drawer and there was a whole bottle of Xanax. So I reached over and I took them in my hand and I said, what the heck, it isn't going to hurt. I'll just go to sleep and that'll be it. And something told me, I called my daughter. And she was working. Just by luck, she answered the phone. And I said, I'm kind of in a bad way. Do you think you could come over? She said, I'll be right there. And she came in, and I still had the pills in my hand. I was afraid to take the cap off. And she said, what exactly were you going to do with those? I said, well, I was going to do the wrong thing. I was going to take this. And she said, let's go. So she got me up out of my recliner, and we went down to Flushing Hospital emergency. And when I crashed, I really can't describe it because it's such a